ask that you update. We'd also like you to update your name in Zoom to include your preferred name, and if you feel comfortable, also your pronouns. And yes, just a second there. I will update mine while we wait. Right. So you may notice your microphones were turned off to start. So that means you'll need to unmute to speak. You do that via the mute unmute button in the bottom left of your screen. If you're joining via phone, you'll press *6 to unmute. You can also use the non-verbal feedback options available in Zoom. You can raise your hand or leave a message in the chat box if you have a question. And if you called into a meeting, you'll use *9 to raise your hand. We are pausing a little bit to allow the interpreters time to catch up as well, just so you know. We also ask that you not look at your screen while you're driving, because we care that everyone stay safe. Fantastic. All right, so we'll introduce ourselves. So my name is Jen Rowe. I am a planner in the active transportation team in the transportation department. And I'll pass it left across the screen to Andrea.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea Burns. I'm the director of AgeFriendly Boston for the Age Strong Commission. Jeffrey.
And good evening, everyone. Jeffrey Alexis with the Public Works Engineering Division, Principal Civil Engineer, and also the project manager for the Cummins Highway project. Thank you.
Right, so at this meeting, we aim to learn about how the city is working to be age-friendly, both about Age-Friendly Boston, which is the citywide effort to support older adults in leading healthy and productive lives. We'll also learn about some street design practices that support aging in place. And then we'll also speak to the Cummins Highway Reconstruction project, its goals, the opportunities we see, and the elements of age-friendly street design that we can include in the Cummins project. And then, of course, we'll discuss some next steps. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jeff to introduce the Cummins Highway redesign project.
Yes, thank you, Jen. Once again, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. To give you a quick update on the Cummins Highway project. If you've attended this meeting, then I'm sure you've seen these slides before. But we've ended the trial on Cummins Highway in October of 2021. So until the construction or the reconstruction of this roadway begins, Cummins Highway will be what it was prior to the pilot, which provided four travel lanes along the corridor, 2 in each direction, as well as parking. During the last year, we collected data on the traffic speeds, the travel times, and of course, we wanted your feedback about your experience for the 1 lane in each direction. If you have any questions and would like to review the data we collected, please visit the boston.gov /Cummins-Highway website. The data that we collected will inform and is informing how we design a new Cummins Highway, but ultimately your input is still crucial. And if you have any questions or comments that you want to provide, please do so through the website. I'm going to try to give Suzanne and Esther some time to catch up. So with the Cummins Highway reconstruction, as I mentioned, your feedback is very vital. We cannot produce a design without your input. Your input will help shape how Cummins Highway will be for the next 70 years. And as you know, we're still currently doing community outreach to the form on the final design. So why is it that we plan to reconstruct Cummins Highway? As you probably heard, Cummins Highway hasn't been updated since the spring of 1955, where streetcars ran along Cummins Highway, and they were removed in 1953 to make room for cars. So the street that it currently exists today reflects the priorities of the 1950s, which essentially enabled non-residents to drive quickly through this neighborhood. So during the reconstruction, what we plan to do is completely rebuild the street. So that includes sidewalks, new curbs, street lights, traffic signals. We will be repaving the roadway and replacing any utilities as necessary. National Grid, I believe, is still out there. We also believe we have some telecommunications that have reached out to say that they want to upgrade their utilities along the corridor as well. So they'll be doing that prior to us going out on Cummins Highway. The city has budgeted approximately $24 million for the reconstruction of Cummins Highway. So this is a huge investment that we're pushing forward for the Mattapan community. So as part of the Cummins Highway reconstruction, ultimately all the projects throughout the city of Boston, we want them to meet our goals that were outlined in Go Boston 2030. Those goals or those initiatives include improving safety on our streets, reducing emissions, and investing in communities to achieve equity and access to opportunities. In order to accomplish those goals, we've been partnering up with other departments to advance our collective plans. So we're working to inform residents for the work that's happening around the city. And of course, we want to improve our collaboration with our work in order to achieve not only the city's goals, but also the neighborhood goals. As I mentioned, our collaboration with residents to advance your goals is vital. We want to build awareness and participation in the efforts that you care about. And of course, we want to confirm your vision for your future through our projects that we're working on. With that, I will turn it over to Andrea, who will give you more information about age-friendly design in Boston.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey. And thank you to Stephanie for the invitation to talk tonight with you all and share what we've been doing since, let's see, we signed on to the initiative in 2014. And that was through the US partner, AARP. And the age-friendly network of cities really began back about in 2007, when there was a lot of data that was being conducted that showed that there would be a rapid increase in the older adult population, as well as increase in people living in cities. So that's really the genesis of that. And we decided to, when we started to see that our numbers would also rise, just like everywhere else in the world, that is when we signed on to become an age-friendly city through AARP. We did a series of listening sessions in 23 neighborhoods. And those listening sessions and surveys and conversations then became the age-friendly action plan. UMass Boston Gerontology, it's UMass Boston Institute on Social and Demographic Research on Aging. They did all of our research for us and helped us to figure out, what it all meant and put it together for us. Next slide. We also spoke with many community organizations and other city departments. We gathered information from every Boston neighborhood. As I said, we hosted many different listening sessions, and we did have listening sessions in Spanish, Haitian Creole, Mandarin, and Cantonese, the dominant languages in Boston, and for older adults, top 3. And then we had our survey was also conducted, it was also given in 6 different languages. You can go to the next slide. So we've done a lot of work in Mattapan, and I see a couple of people that I know on the call. I see their names, and it's wonderful to see what we've done a lot with Mattapan, and love the neighborhood dearly. I think our listening session was in the Mattapan Branch Library, so that was the first time that I guess we really got data and heard from residents. We did our listening session in Haitian Creole at the Greater Boston Nazarene Compassionate Center. And huge, it was the largest listening session that we had. It was incredibly exciting. I remember having to run out and get more coffee and fish patties from a local bakery because we ran out, and I didn't want everybody to, people to not have any. So it was a lot of fun. I didn't understand anything, but it was incredibly rich and passionate, and we got a lot of information from that listening session. Next, please. I hope that's okay that I'm saying, I don't know how else I should say to go to the next slide.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. It sounds kind of like so bossy.
It's not, but I also am just keeping things slow for the interpreters.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. You can tell me next slide and I'll switch.
All right, I'm also happy to take the time too. I just, yeah. So the listening sessions, we started with the same questions. And those were, what are the strengths of Boston as a city to grow older in, and what are the weaknesses? And we asked the same questions in every single listening session. And so clearly we heard that there were a lot of advantages, as everyone can imagine. Proximity to medical services, major one, proximity to education, to cultural opportunities, to parks. Walkability actually was a strength that was identified. But there was also a lot of weaknesses and areas for improvement. And one of the major findings really was around walkability and safe and maintained sidewalks. We heard a lot about sidewalks, the need for benches, and the need to identify where public restrooms were. Another area was just to have information in multiple languages and in all of the different media outlets that are available in the city. And I think there's a high level of social isolation amongst older adults. And so to really do a better job with reaching people that are not already connected, or who may be dealing with health issues and conditions that make it hard for them to be connected, was also identified as a weakness. As I had mentioned earlier, the plentiful parks and the paths, the daily destinations in walking or biking, existence of public transit, the fact that we have sidewalks and curb cuts, but the weaknesses, concerns about personal safety at night, poor bike infrastructure leading people to bike on sidewalks. Something we heard a lot about is older adults being concerned about people riding on the sidewalks. And poor walkability, pedestrian safety, and in Mattapan, Blue Hill Avenue near Mattapan Square was an area of concern. So one of the 3 neighborhoods that we decided to celebrate the release of our action plan was again Mattapan Square. And we went to Almont Park and we shared the results. We shared the data that we had collected and the major findings. And we also, at the same time, wanted to show what are examples of age-friendly and an age-friendly city or age-friendly environments. So we invited the Clark Fowler Farm and the Urban Farming Institute to come, and they gave away seedlings and plants and talked about the Clark Fowler Farm, that wonderful place. We had a meditation by a woman from Northeastern. That was also really wonderful. And we had input on sidewalk safety as well as bench placement at that celebration. So we're continuing to implement the action plan's priorities by raising awareness of programs, resources, services, and amenities, all the public assets in the city of Boston, improving walkability and building inclusivity through city plans, projects, and policies, advocating for the needs of older adults, helping older adults engage with the city and voice their perspectives directly. Over the pandemic, we did a project to map age-friendly walks. And this was a collaboration with Mass General to address isolation and the effects of the pandemic lockdown on older adults' health. And we did hear the desire for age-friendly walking places within the city. And so working with Boston Centers for Youth and Families, with Boston Public Health Commission, with parks, Sports and Tourism, Disabilities Commission, we assembled a group of walks, a couple per neighborhood, where they were fairly easy to get to. There was parking. There were no real steep grades that the city would plow within a couple of days, 48 hours approximately. And and also where benches and restrooms were located as well. So that was our criteria for age-friendly walks. And they're on our city website. We've also mapped public restrooms. This was something that people really did identify as a major priority. I had an intern from Boston College, a young woman, and she helped us work on it. And she said that all of her friends loved this project as well. It's clearly something that all ages value and need. So we have 3 in Mattapan that are all owned by the city, 3 that we identified. Actually, it's more than 3. So yeah, the BPL, BPD District B3, people don't realize that most of our fire stations and police stations are open for the public restrooms are open and available, and they're deep into the night, So people didn't realize that. I didn't realize that. And then the BCYF at Gallivan Boulevard. And of course, we're always looking to add more. Initially, we were just going to add the restrooms that the city maintains, but we've also integrated restrooms from other entities like Boston Harbor. Now they mapped their restrooms, and we've added those. But we're looking to add more. It has not been easy the last couple of years with COVID. A lot of people have actually closed their restrooms for public use, and hopefully that's going to change back. But clearly we'd like to have, I think we have over 100. We would like to have many more than that. The issue of benches is one of the most controversial that I had no idea would become what was going to be that initially. We thought we would just put that in our plan. It wouldn't be any big deal. Actually, we in our action plan we had to use the words places to rest. We couldn't even use the word bench, and so we kind of put it aside for a while. We thought, well, let's see what we can do with this. And hopefully we'll be able to get some benches, but we don't want to push the issue right now. But what ended up happening was one of these fortuitous kinds of partnerships where Urban Mechanics, the Mayor's Office of Urban Mechanics, had a couple of fellows that had come for the summer. And they were generous enough to offer them to do a project with our department. And I think I had said, well, there's benches, there's restrooms, which one of those do you feel, are you interested in? And this incredible student named Brian Ho said, oh, I'm really interested in the benches. And what he found really kind of turned everything around, honestly, from being places to rest, and we really can't install more benches, to basically the mayor at that point, Mayor Walsh, earmarking $90,000 for benches at that time, really after this fellow had come up with this study, which showed that there was an uneven distribution across the city. There were only a couple of benches in Mattapan, and versus other parts of the city, like I want to say Mission Hill had over 100. And when the city heard that, the administration, they said they had to address that. And so the benches were earmarked. And we have 4 new benches in Mattapan Square. And we have a great story where actually when the bench installation company and parks were there, Public Works were there, before the bench was even installed, there was someone waiting to sit down on the bench. We've also done a series of walk audits with Vision Zero and the transportation department, and Charlotte Fleetwood and her amazing team. They worked, we did a series of, I think we did 3 walk audits, one of which was in Mattapan Square, and also with the Disabilities Commission and Walk Boston. Walk Boston has been an amazing partner for the city on range of things. Benches they were really advocated for benches. They also would prepare these sheets with different features of an age-friendly walking environment, and the audits were people could take the sheet and sort of mark it off. Is this safe? Is there broken sidewalks? Are there broken windows in the businesses? I mean, just various different things that went into this walk audit, and that was done by Walk Boston. And again, Mattapan Square was one of those neighborhoods, and the results partially of that audit did help inform BTD's redesign of Mattapan Square. And I guess pop-ups are coming this summer, which is exciting. So this was mainly an initiative of the Department of Transportation Department and Vision Zero, but we certainly were in strong support of lowering Boston's default speed limit, and just really emphasizing the connection between driving speeds and safety for people of all ages and abilities. And knowing that, basically through Vision Zero and the work that they did, just knowing the, just how different, between 20 miles an hour, car going 20 miles an hour, being hit by a car going that speed versus 40, for example. Yeah, this is that graph. Just a really dramatic difference. And then, of course, as an older adult, I think these numbers are even higher. So I don't think that that's age, that accounts for age, but it's a dramatic difference. So the lowering of the default speed limit to 25 was a huge accomplishment for the city and for older adults. And the placement of the solar powered speed feedback signs, I think those were really, really effective. And again, Charlotte and Vision Zero were really good about, putting them in the kinds of locations where there were going to be multiple, a lot of different users of all ages in those locations. Because of the various sidewalk safety issues, and we really did a lot of outreach about how to use 311, how to download the app for those people that used, that had smartphones. And once that app came, I don't remember exactly when that was, like 5 or 6 years ago, that was really a big, I think, really accelerated the city's response. And maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed that things were being handled in a, just seemed like everything became a little more efficient when that app got rolled out. And so a lot of people never knew about 311. And so that was one of the things that in our plan, we really, did a lot of outreach at all of our different community meetings, all of our events. We have hundreds of events. We had hundreds of events per year in our department. And we promoted 311 heavily because we just feel like it was a really good way for people to get some immediate changes if they were possible, like broken concrete, like tree roots, tripping hazards, obstructed sidewalks. So I think that has been effective, I believe. Another thing that we did under Agefriendly Boston, and I think that we have someone in the meeting who was one of the students in our Civic Academy, was we hosted a series of Civic Academies where people could join. I think it was 6 week. They were 6 week courses, and they would learn all about local, state, and federal government and how to interact with those different forms of government, how to give a stump speech, how to advocate, how to find out about legislation and effectively advocate for it. And I think that was really, I think people really enjoyed that. It's something that people have continued to, a lot of those the groups that joined the Civic Academy continue to meet. And they continue to be involved with our department and hopefully, other city processes as well as a result of taking that, being enrolled in the Civic Academy. One of the most fun projects, most interesting projects that we were involved with was having a Boston artist in residence, Karen Young. She ended up choosing Grove Hall, the Grove Hall Senior Center, as as her location to be that artist in residence for the year. And she ran I think it's called taiko drumming, and she taught all of these older adults to do this amazing Japanese drumming. And because that had been it's a BCYF senior drop-in center, and that had been a more recent development, it was very unsafe there. And people were just fly by. It's cut through between Blue Hill and Columbia Road. And so because there were more seniors who were using that space, they were very concerned. They were extremely creative and really trying to get safer crossing there. There's a parking lot across the street. A lot of the older adults would park there. And so it was, something that they really felt it was dangerous for them. So utilizing the taiko drumming that they learned, and through a series of street demonstrations and chanting and songs and, advocating, it did end up resulting in some safer crossings at that site. So other ways that we've tried to work with the various city departments is really in an advocacy basis to, something that has become, I believe, the standard practice now is to use concrete as a sidewalk surface. I don't know that was always the case, but remember when we started out talking about sidewalk safety and materials and best practices, concrete was something that kept being kind of mentioned. And I believe now that the city's policy is to use concrete as much as possible. Another aspect of age-friendly design are these yellow tactile strips on ramps, and just the consistency of those and matching them if they're on one side, making sure that it's on another side. Having it be yellow, I believe, is now city policy. And again, not necessarily something that we directly were made a policy, but certainly advocated for that, and because of what we had heard. And continue to kind of be a voice for age-friendly street design in transportation projects, as well as in BPDA projects. I'm still doing this, right? Okay, so why age-friendly street design? So from AARP, who's one of our partners, transportation is the vital link that connects older adults to social activity, economic opportunity, and community services that support their independence. Without it, people are less able to remain in their homes and communities as they age. So I really always like to think about what we do as a human rights issue, in that people of all ages and abilities deserve to have an equally good quality of life. And I think since the beginning of when I've started in this work, that is something that I've always felt was one of our best arguments, that this is indeed about human rights, and it is about equity, and that age is is an overlooked diversity that should be considered in all of our policies and all of our designs. And improvements for older adults really do make it better for everybody else. We also have done a lot of travel training and having older adults accompany other older adults on different bus and train routes to kind of help with demystifying that process if people didn't know how to do it, especially if someone had been recently retired, who used to drive a lot. Just really knowing that our transportation system has so much that, clearly even in more rural parts of the state don't have those kinds of transportation options, and Boston does. So another big focus for us has been to try to get people to be familiar with every single mode of transportation that exists in the city. A variety of safe, affordable, dependable, and user-friendly travel options enable people of all ages to stay active and engaged in their communities. And if I could bring in one more element, it's the element of social isolation, which we are currently, is one of our themes that we're continuing to work on in Age-Friendly Boston, is just knowing how dangerous social isolation is and the adverse impact on health, on well-being, on health outcomes, mental and physical and emotional health. So the more people know how to use transportation, the more people feel comfortable in the streets, driving, walking, biking, taking public transportation, the less isolated they will be. Safety is even more important for older adults. Unfortunately, Walk Boston has just released a new report on the impact of the disproportionate impact on older adults in crashes. Older adults at 65 and older are hit and killed at a higher rate than other age groups. They are 17% of the population in Massachusetts, but 36% of fatal crash victims. This was the recent report by Walk Boston. Older adults are 2 to 8 times more likely to die than adults age 64 and younger when struck by vehicles. The fatality rate for pedestrians 75 and older is higher than any other age group. Just like the city, AARP endorses a complete streets approach. Complete street is safe for all users. It's usable by people of all ages and abilities by any means, including walking, rolling, biking, riding, public transit, and driving. And when roads are safe for all users, older adults have more options to safely and affordably get around. So as we've learned and through our Vision Zero work, a lot of the intersections are where the majority of the conflicts happen and crashes happen. So I think the city has done an amazing job of changing out, curb cuts, making ramps more accessible, having many more audible pedestrian signals, longer time to cross. Again, that was something that we heard a lot about, just needing much more time to cross a street, something that I think has changed quite a bit in the last 5 years or so. Clear paths of travel without obstructions, clear sight lines, curb extensions, and then pedestrian head starts, having a head start before vehicles get a green. And safer speeds, including tighter turns, narrower travel lanes, and raised crosswalks. And then leaving the intersection, going to the sidewalk. A wider sidewalk is more accessible. Gentle grades are more supportive for walking. Proper drainage is very important. When water pools, it can lead to more ice, which is treacherous for anybody, especially older adults. Adequately sized tree pits and tree pits that are as much as possible flush with the street. Again, a clear path of travel, sufficient lighting, but without glare, and safer speeds, which can often be accomplished with narrower travel lanes. And then comfort is also important, comfort and support. Age-friendly designs also include things that we've mentioned quite a bit tonight: benches, restrooms, water fountains, wayfinding, and significantly as well, our street trees. That's something that has been more recent for our initiative, but just like speed has a disproportionate impact on older adults, heat also has a disproportionate impact on older adults. And as we've been hearing a lot, the difference between a street with trees and without trees can be many, many, many degrees. I want to say 15 to 20 degrees difference. And that makes a huge difference for someone who wants to get around in the city who's older. And it has an adverse impact. Streets without trees have an adverse impact on older adult health. Another aspect of age-friendly streets involves businesses. And we have an age and dementia-friendly business program because clearly an age-friendly city really has a lot to do with being able to walk to amenities, to services, and having them be accessible and within your neighborhood. Controversial issue, but yes, older adults do bike. My colleague who is on this in this meeting tonight, Melissa Berlin, was recently at a rally for an e-bike rally, and she met a lot of older adults who are pushing for e-bike legislation. And just like with any mode of transportation, there is a wide variety of ages. And a lot of people have been biking for years and years and years and have grown older as they've been biking. Some people are taking it up as they are growing older. So it's a wide variety. And in Mattapan, probably many of you know Vivian Ortiz, who runs the wonderful women's biking group. And so there's a lot of bicyclists who are older. So every time we think about bicyclists, we don't necessarily think of older adults, and I think we should. Just that older folks will be using these bike lanes and facilities as well as other ages. So we're in the midst of a bike boom for older adults. They are an important and growing sector of cyclists. The number of older adults 65 and older biking to work has increased from 29% from 2014 to 2018. According to AARP, they find that current trends are benefiting older adults because there's better biking networks, because there's bike share programs, there's increase in e-bike and adaptive bike options. The e-bike, again, Melissa had mentioned that was because of an e-bike and because of its adaptive use, and she had a disability and was older, she was only able to bike because of her e-bike. So because of the options, and I think the city has done such a lot of great work around better bike infrastructure, it is making people feel that it's safer to bike. Indications are that the pandemic has only accelerated this boom. Older adults in every age group reported cycling more often during the pandemic than they did before it. And these are some of the restrictions. For physical, the biggest reason was for physical exercise during COVID-19 restrictions. One of the safest places for any of us to go is outside. And so, as we all know, more increased use of public space was one of the only real positive things about the pandemic. Another one was I now have people to ride with regularly. I think that's really significant. I've moved to a place with a good network of on-road facilities and trails. I've moved to a place with more cycling accessible destinations. So those are all, I guess, the top reasons. So that's wonderful. The same things that benefit pedestrians also benefit cyclists. And so that's slower speeds, visibility, protection, benches, street trees, wayfinding signs, same elements of age-friendly pedestrian safety. Age-friendly streets include accessible transit, well-designed bus stops, travel training, as I mentioned earlier, bus buddies training, workshops that the MBTA has hosted. And the bus buddies, we have a wonderful new film that I should try to find and send to everybody, but it's on Bus Buddies Adventure that our RSVP unit has produced. Streets that are safe for other modes are also age-friendly for driving. AARP's Planning for Complete Streets for an Aging America advocates for slower speeds, particularly where drivers and pedestrians interact and need more time to make and execute decisions, clarity, so it's easy to understand how to navigate safely amongst pedestrians, cyclists, and other drivers. Signs and lighting are particularly important. Visibility, so it's easy to notice, read, understand, and respond to visual cues and information. Our streets can contribute to an age-friendly public realm. Streets comprise the majority of Boston's public space. People interact with more frequently and positively when walking, biking, and taking transit. Again, to go back to the social isolation aspect we talked about earlier. Traffic-calmed streets provide opportunities for spontaneous interactions. We're always looking for opportunities for pocket parks, plazas, and gardens.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I was so impressed getting to learn all about all the age-friendly initiatives you and your team have been working on. I'm very grateful to get to age in a city where all these things are being worked on, and super glad that you're our partners on all of our projects for streets, and particularly in this project. And so that's where I'll kind of start to kind of look at how we are working to incorporate elements of age-friendly street design in Cummins Highway. So first, why age-friendly design on Cummins in particular? As is very clear from Andrea's part of this presentation, we care about older adults everywhere in the city. So that, and of course, older adults live in Mattapan too. And in fact, Mattapan has a higher percentage of older adults than the city average. This map here shows the percentages in Mattapan. And we want our older adults to be able to stay active and engaged in the community. And the best way we can think to do that is to provide affordable, dependable, user-friendly, and safe travel options. Next slide, please. So for all those reasons, we're making Cummins a complete street, an age-friendly street. We want it to be usable by people of all ages and abilities by any means. So a really true complete street. We're excited to see a Cummins tomorrow where older adults have more options to get around safely and affordably. All right, so what does that actually look like? So what you see here is a rendering, an image of how we're thinking about a typical intersection on Cummins Highway. To orient you a little bit to the image, the Cummins is the straightaway that's receding into the distance there. And to walk you through the different elements here, you'll see there's 4 crosswalks at each approach to the intersection. They're very visible and bright. They look like a ladder. And at the end of every crosswalk, you'll see those tactile pads that Andrea spoke of. And those tactile pads are at the base of a curb ramp. Those help people with walkers and wheelchairs and canes use the intersection. Now, along the pair of crosswalks along Cummins Highway, those are going to be raised crossings. And raised crossings are, instead of kind of dipping down and then dipping up again as one crosses the street as a pedestrian, you get to stay at the same level as you enter the roadway and exit the roadway. Of course, the converse, if you're in a vehicle, you're going to go up and then go down again. And that's actually a good thing. That's gonna slow people driving down and make them approach intersections more cautiously as they're turning onto Cummins. Now, the crossings that are going across Cummins Highway, those will not be raised. The reason for that is that Cummins has more traffic, and a raised crosswalk wouldn't last as long on in that type of an environment. However, we are doing some things to make those crossings safer as well. One of those things is curb extensions. So those are where the curb line kind of bumps into the further out into the roadway. And yes, thank you, Stephanie. And that makes it pedestrians waiting to cross the street much more visible to vehicles. That also serves to shorten the crossing distance. And in addition to the curb extensions, there'll also now only be 2 travel lanes for people to cross. So that'll make it even safer. And then finally, those curb extensions will allow us to include more green space, helping with the heat effect. Next slide, please. All right, so that image I just showed was at a intersection without signals. At the same time, when we do have signals, that gives us some additional options to play with and make things safer there. So one thing, as Andrea referenced, it's really important that we've heard quite a lot about is to have sufficient time to cross the street, and not for someone who is a jogger running across, but someone who can take their time to cross. And we'll also make sure that each of these signals have the buttons you can press to hear an audible pedestrian signal telling you to walk. And then we're taking a look at each signalized intersection and understanding where we can incorporate having a pedestrian head start, where you get a chance to walk before the vehicles get the green. And so those are appropriate in some areas, and then protected phases might be appropriate in some areas as well. And that's where, when you have the walk sign, there are no conflicting vehicular movements at all. Next slide, please. So again, kind of moving away from the intersection, there are things we can do to make the straightaways safer for all people, including older adults. First, we're going to kind of narrow the travel lanes, and that helps calm speeds. While the travel lanes are going to be the vehicular travel lanes will be narrowed, the sidewalks are going to be actually wider and smooth. And people biking will be separated both from people walking and people driving. They'll have their own space. And then there will also be some space to add some new street trees to, again, help with the heat effect during the day. And we're excited to get to include some new street lights, and that those will both be, as you can see on the ones depicted here, the lights are shining not just on the roadway, but also on the sidewalk to make people walking feel safe too. Right, we're also having a keen eye on bus stops and making sure that those are top notch. One of the most important things we know is to make sure that the stops are physically long enough for the bus to pull all the way to the curb and out of the travel lane. And once riders do leave the bus, they'll have a much safer pedestrian environment to get to their destination with all of those improvements to crosswalks that I went over earlier. And we are also excited to get to include bus shelters. They're an important refuge from the weather, a place to sit. There will be room for bus shelters along Cummins. We're still working out the details, exactly how many stops and which ones will have shelters, the type of shelter, how it's going to be maintained, but we're excited that there's going to be some real opportunities there. And we're also working to add amenities that bring comfort, ease, and joy to being out on the street. So those are the benches, shade from trees, bike parking, signage, and art too. All right, so.
Do you want to take a break for some questions?
Yes,
or any
please.
Feedback?
Thank you, Stephanie.
Jeff, I'll toss one to you that may not have quite an answer yet, but will there be a diversity of trees? The lack of diversity of trees has contributed to the abundance of seasonal pollen.
So the answer to that means more than likely yes. We're not planning on proposing just one species of trees along the corridor. That what species we're planning to propose it's still to be determined. But yeah, we're looking at proposing trees that will thrive along the corridor. The parks, we're working with the Parks Department. As you know, I mean, from one of our previous meetings, they are looking at revamping their plan, their urban forest plan for the city. So we're working with them. We'll have more information. We'll definitely share that with the community. But as of right now, we don't have a full landscape plan that kind of identifies what species we are along the corridor. That usually comes during around the 75% design. When we get there, we would have that information and we can share it.
And then a follow-up, which I also think we haven't figured out just yet, but are bus stops maintained by the city or the MBTA?
Yeah, so that's maintenance is always a issue that we run into, but bus stops with shelters are usually maintained by the MBTA. We're still having that conversation with them about where we can actually put shelters along the corridor. That's still a discussion that we're having internally in terms of funding and where the best locations will be. But yeah, I mean, we're hoping that we can have the MBTA maintain the new shelters that we're hoping to propose along the corridor. Random bus stops. I know Public Works, we are working on implementing a new I guess program and initiative where they do snow removal at certain locations. So I don't know if it's just MBTA bus stops or school bus stops, or just major intersections that we know that pedestrians utilize. It's something that they are trying to roll out in terms of snow, because as we're seeing some of these snow events, are becoming worse and worse. And people aren't able to access their sidewalks, but they're not able to cross the street safely because there's piles of snow everywhere. So they are looking at providing those services throughout the city of Boston. And I think what would be important is residents contacting us, through 311 to put in those requests. The yards, we look at them whenever there's a snow event, not during a snow event, generally after. But yeah, just reach out to the city through 311 and let us know what the issues are in terms of maintaining or removing snow at these locations. I think the next question we have here.
Yeah, so Barbara has her hand up.
Hi, I guess this is, well, I know the topic was supposed to be about Cummins Highway, but a lot of the information was given about Mattapan, and a lot of that information was misinformation. It's not really what is actually going on. Mattapan actually has a lack of bus shelters that were requested, I want to say maybe 8-9 years ago. We still don't have them. There was a conversation about water bubblers. We can't even, we're having a hard time getting those actually in the parks. There's a lot of things that that the information that was given out was really not there. It's not truthful. I mean, when you mentioned about the public bath restrooms, the police department does not allow you to use the public bathrooms. Let's just say that. B3 does not allow anybody, the general public, to use the bathrooms. The public library does, but I don't even know how many people in Mattapan actually know where the Gallivan BCYF community center is. I know where it is, but it's so far into the development, nobody would use it anyway. It's so far off the beaten path. Again, I just have a lot of issues. And I'd like to see, again, a meeting like this happen again. Not just, like this seems to be the first time I've even seen Age Strong or Age Friendly Zoom meeting. And I think there just needs to be more of them because there are issues that we as seniors have. And I also wanted to ask, why wasn't this presented at the monthly meeting when we had it on April 1st? Nothing was mentioned about this meeting coming up. And I was shocked and surprised to have received the email this morning about this meeting. I think information about this meeting should have been given out a little earlier so that more seniors could be on this call. And Andrea, you did a good job, but I think people need to hear the real things that are going on in Mattapan. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. I don't know if Andrea wanted to address some of the age-friendly issues that Barbara kind of brought up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with Barbara. So, I was asked tonight to talk about the age-friendly features to the city. So it's not exactly misinformation. It's that they're, our understanding, honestly, from property management is that all the police stations are open. So if B3 is not open, then that is a problem because that's why we included city-run facilities, because we didn't want to be putting things, on our map that a business owner was later going to say, no, you can't use it. So we wanted to have city-run facilities, and those were cleared with operations and with the public facilities. So that is a problem for us. That if you're saying that that's not allowed. So B3 is one of the best in terms of what they do for older adults. So I'm quite surprised. So it's something that I'll look into. And in terms of, so I'm trying to think of the other things you were saying about bus shelters. Again, that is the MBTA, not to put that on them, but they do maintain those. It seems like a small thing, like the few things that we've been able to do, like benches that we've been able to do. It's not like everybody wants one, but again, we do have some there, and we will have more as well. We have about 29 coming soon. So I know it doesn't maybe seem like a lot right now, but we are laying the groundwork. And when we're talking about age-friendly cities, these are the elements that help. Whether you're going to see that it's totally age-friendly, no. Like I said, we couldn't even use the word bench 5 years ago. So it doesn't happen quickly. I wish it could. I've spent many very frustrated days, weeks, wishing things could happen more quickly. And then asking about why it wasn't mentioned at the meeting. I don't really know. I don't know, there's not always age-friendly is a special initiative, and the Mayor's Advisory Council doesn't probably hear all the things that we do, only because it's kind of seen as a little bit of a geeky kind of initiative that is not, you don't hear about a lot of things that we do. So maybe that's something we should fix.
I also just wanted to.
I didn't know what else there was, but sorry.
I just wanted to add in that, yeah, I think partially that could be on us and making sure that everyone who's sharing information in the city knows about this initiative. I will say we did, and that these this conversation series. So definitely not. There's an element of that, although I do want to say that we did send out an email, of course, about this meeting today. And we do that because we find that a lot of people sign up the day of if you send out a blast the day of. At the same time, we did, as I think Stephanie put in the chat, this was just the final reminder that we did send out this about this meeting weeks before. We sent out about 4,000 postcards that should have reached residents nearby Cummins and flyered. At the same time, very open to additional ways of getting the word out about these, but just wanted to provide some context on that.
Yeah, and I'll also add that we're this is essentially new for us. We're doing a huge amount of engagement for the Cummins Highway project. This is new for my division, my department. But yeah, we're definitely trying to have a better relationship with the community. If there are any questions or issues that you have in regards to some of the things that we're showing and things that you're not familiar with, age-friendly, Age Strong initiative that the city's working with, definitely reach out to us. We're happy to share those concerns and that feedback with our respective divisions. It's more of just sharing information and putting everyone in touch with the right people that can provide you with any information or services that the city provides. We're definitely trying to do a better job at it, and it means it's work in progress. But just wanted to let you know that if there's something that you need, please reach out, and we're happy to kind of to push that information forward to the right people.
All right, Joyce has been very patiently waiting.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm not too far from Cummins Highway. I actually live on Almont Street, the same street of the park. And so I use Cummins very often. One thing that kind of bothered me, somewhere within, maybe it was in Andrea's presentation, I heard, or maybe it was yours, Jeffrey, somewhere I just heard something about, yeah, when they were giving a breakdown of the different intersections with the arrows. Who did that just now? Someone did that? Yeah.
Yeah,
I heard the word, and the streets will be a little more narrower. And I said, oh my God. Now, as I'm looking at this picture of what's next for Cummins Highway right now, we have two-way traffic, as well as we have parking on the side. And it seems logical, and I'm just a little concerned as we look more into the plans. I don't think we need to make them narrower.
So
and hello?
Yeah, no, I will I think Jen might have misspoke in terms of, I think she was talking about the travel lanes, but in terms of the travel lanes along Cummins Highway, they are currently 10 feet wide. We're reducing the number of travel lanes, but for what we're planning to do is actually effectively make them a little bit wider. So they're going from 10 feet to 11 feet. I know one of the concerns that we did hear from the community was that they may not have felt comfortable. Coming out, like getting out of their cars. They felt like the cars were kind of too close. So that 11-foot width for the travel lane will provide a little bit more comfort. I think what we look at, and when it comes to traffic, we don't want the lanes to be too wide, because then drivers become a little bit too comfortable where they can speed. So we try to find that balance, I think, between 10 feet and 12 feet. Some locations and some streets around the city, you might find, lanes that aren't marked, and they're effectively 13 feet wide, and cars kind of speed down those roadways. But for Cummins, we're looking at 11 feet, 11-foot travel lanes.
What is the speed limit there right now? Is it 20 or 25?
25.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to see more of the visual things. And well, first of all, similar to what Barbara said, I hope as we have more meetings about this, we, the residents, get advance notice in the time. I just got it through another friend today that the meeting was at 6:30. I'm glad I made it. If I had not, I would have been a little upset because I hadn't heard about it. So as we go forward, I would like for you all to be a little more timely and concerned to give people advance notice so we can have some input, because I'd like to see it as we progress. And most definitely before any ground is dug. Let's get our 2 cents in here. But it's a long time coming. I think I can envision a beautiful improvement, but we would like input in it. I would. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
Yes.
We have a raised hand on the phone, a phone number ending with 0785.
You'll need to press *6 to unmute.
Yes, my name is Linda, and I'm part of the West Selden Street Neighborhood Association, and our church is on Cummins Highway, Born Again Evangelist Outreach Ministry. And as far as the speeding goes on Cummins Highways, they have hit a couple of our members' cars speeding down Cummins Highway. So I'm glad you're not going to make it any narrower, that you're going to widen it a little bit. But, you know, the plan sounds good, but I'm in agreement with the other two, Barbara and the lady that just spoke, that you need to engage the community into what's happening, because you do have, you do have people that want to participate. And if it wasn't for Barbara, I would not have known about the meeting tonight either. And she's very informative. She tries to keep the community informed about what's happening in the Mattapan area.
Jen, do you want to just respond to that one more time?
Yes, yeah. So thank you. Really glad, Barbara, that you've been helping us get the word out about these. I did want to share a little bit about how we've been getting the word out. And actually, maybe can we advance the slides to the timeline? All right, yes. Yeah, so this conversation series has been going on since June 2021, although our first public meeting was in 2019. In 2021, we began having these monthly conversations on different topics that are all informing the Cummins design. And to get the word out about these, we've been going on Cummins Highway and walking up and down the corridor, handing out flyers, talking to people about what they're seeing, encouraging them to attend these meetings. And we've also been sending out postcards every couple months or so to residents along the corridor. So I just wanted to, that's kind of the way we've been kind of socializing this. And we've had a lot of really, really great conversations. You can, we'll get to this later in the conversation, but you can access all of these previous conversations on our website. You can listen to the recordings or just flip through the presentations. And as always, you're welcome to reach out to us with questions you may have. Jeff's email will be later on in the presentation.
All right. I have another raised hand. I've just asked you to unmute.
There. Hi. My name.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Ioma. I live on Cummins Highway. I actually live right by that intersection that you showed in your presentation. And I just wanted to piggyback off of all the accidents that happened on Cummins Highway, because several cars have actually hit my house over the past 10 years. And I really think when you're doing the assessment of these accidents that we need to reconsider where we have the lights on Cummins Highway, or maybe consider speed bumps or something, because people really take the word highway and think that's what it is. And I worry about the cars that come up on the curb, you know, not just about our older population, but about our children too, that come from school. And I see children pass by my house every day coming off the bus. It could be anybody on that sidewalk. So many cars just come up on the curb. So I worry about that too.
All right, thank you for your comment. Are you referencing the intersection at Savannah and Rugby? Was that the one? If you can mute yourself, unmute yourself again.
Yes, it's Rugby. Yeah, Rugby and Cummins Highway.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. No. That is one of the locations that we are looking at. Unfortunately, I don't think that intersection warrants a traffic signal. But we are designing that intersection to make it safer for pedestrians and also to slow down vehicles coming around that corner or entering Cummins Highway. As you can see, I mean, we are proposing raised crossings on the approaches. So on Savannah and Rugby, there'll be a raised crossing, which will require vehicles to kind of slow down before entering the Cummins Highway. So I think that's what the main issue is cars are just literally just rushing into the intersection, and it's a bit weird because I mean it is a T intersection and shouldn't be so many accidents at this location, because I mean this is essentially a 90 degree intersection, but what we're seeing is that cars are just not being responsible. Drivers aren't being responsible when entering here. So with the raised crossings, that would definitely it should definitely help address some of the accidents that are happening at this intersection.
So when you race crossing, is that like a speed bump almost, like to slow cars down?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so effectively they won't be able to rush into Cummins Highway off of Savannah or Rugby. If they do that, they're going to be damaging their vehicle getting into Cummins Highway.
Okay. Okay.
Nadine, you can unmute.
Hi, my name is Naldine. I live off of Cummings Highway on Rockingham Road. I just had a question about the side streets. So like Rockingham is one of the side streets on Cummings Highway. And when you're coming onto or like merging onto Cummings Highway, the speeding factor is an issue with, and then also seeing the pedestrians. So would the raised sidewalks also help that? Is it going to be at every merging like intersection, or is it just going to be on those intersections stated? And I also have another question.
Yes, so we're looking at putting raised crossings on all the approaches onto Cummins Highway. There won't be any raised crossings on Cummins Highway. It is an arterial, a lot of traffic, volumes of traffic. But on the approaches, on the side streets, we will be providing the raised crossings. Yes. Okay, thank you. And then my second question was, will the buses be sharing the same lane once the project is done on Cummins Highway with regular cars, or is it going to be like similar to like Dudley or Columbus, where they have their own separate lanes? Yeah, no, the buses, they'll be sharing the travel lanes with the vehicles, but when they're pulling over to pick up passengers, they will be pulling over to the side. So there aren't any, I mean, I know this plan is showing an in-lane bus stop, but it will not be, we will not be proposing any in-lane bus stops as part of this project. Okay, thank you. No problem.
There are a lot of things going on in the chat, but I think Most of that conversation is being handled there. However, I do want to just share a visual of how to save the chat.
Idea.
This guy just made it. So where you see the chat, you'll see something that says, who can see your messages, recording on, and underneath it is where you would type to enter a chat. There are 3 dots next to the smiley face. If you click on that, you'll see this save chat, which you can click and it will save as a text file. You'll want to be careful about choosing where it's saved so that you can find it later. But that is how you can save the chat. It's just click those 3 dots next to the smiley face. All right, sorry, there's another question in the chat about the rotary that was proposed. I can actually bring up the presentation from last month where we talked about that. But Jeff, do you want to start talking while I do that?
Yes. Am I muted? Yes. So for one quick correction, it's not a rotary. We're looking at proposing a roundabout. Rotaries are extremely wide in the diameter. They usually provide a number of travel lanes. For what we're proposing on Cummins Highway, it will be a roundabout. It'll be 1 lane that vehicles will be able to travel into or travel through or around. And also, I mean, it would essentially, due to deflection, would require vehicles to also travel at a slower speed. We're working on finalizing this design in order to provide a safe accommodations for pedestrians and cyclists, and to kind of get through this intersection. But I mean, if there's any specific questions about the roundabout, this is the direction that we're going in. In regards to this project. It is, from my understanding, it is safer than providing traffic signalized intersection, and actually would be more of an improvement in terms of reducing the travel speeds along Cummins Highway. I think what we discussed previously, in the past, is that putting a traffic signal here, because of most of the traffic being on Cummins Highway, the light would effectively be green most of the time for Cummins Highway. So vehicles, wouldn't be able to, there wouldn't be any, effectively, there wouldn't be any deflection to slow them down. With this roundabout, entering the roundabout, you would be required to kind of slow down in order to go around it. And also the plus, you have a U-turn. If you need to take a U-turn, that's also a benefit of providing a roundabout at this intersection.
Naldine, I see your hand raised again.
Sorry, I have a question about the rotary. Which end of Cummings Highway would the rotary be in? Is it the Mattapan Square or the other end near like Rosendale?
No, this is actually in the middle. So this is at the Greenfield Road, Way Boston Street, Alabama Street intersection.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Jen, tossing another one your way, just from Marilyn in the chat. She recommends, or she shares, and I agree with her, that we can never over communicate about meetings. And Jeff, you've also been involved in promoting the meetings from day one for this project. So she's suggesting that we use libraries, community-based organizations, the health center, neighborhood groups, businesses, the food basket, laundromats, hair salons, to help promote, also churches, bodegas. There's a very long list. to help promote the meeting. So I just wanted to hear from one or both of you if you could just speak to that a little bit.
Sure. I guess, Jeff, I joined the project team a little bit later, so I'm not as familiar with what the initial outreach, but I do appreciate all the ideas, absolutely. And yeah, I was just typing out a response. We'd love to connect with more neighbors and definitely welcome the input on additional places to be trying to hand out flyers and connecting with people. So
yeah, not to thank you, Marilyn. I mean, we're happy to do what we can to kind of help promote more residents, constituents to attend our meetings. We're not trying to do this in a vacuum or anything like that. We've definitely done a better job since Stephanie and Jen have joined us in regards to community engagement and reaching out. As Jen mentioned, I mean, we send out postcards and also mailings to over 4,000 addresses in the Mattapan area. I mean, along Cummins Highway and also the adjacent streets. We do have, if you have an email address, please, go to the boston.gov/Cummins-Highway website. You can enter your email address, and we'll send we send all our updates in regards to this project to those email addresses. So please join our contact list. We've in the past we have done we've gone out and flyered in the neighborhood. I don't know how effective they were.
We're still doing it, Jeff.
We're still doing it.
We're there through the winter.
We're still doing it. We're flyering. We've gone to American Food Basket. We've gone to ABCD. Maybe try to reaching out to the church along the church. Well, I think one of the churches along Cummins Highway, at I believe Rexford Road. So we're out there. We're trying to spread word. But yeah, this is a continuing conversation. We're not done yet in terms of community engagement. We're still meeting with the community. I think we have a plan, a community engagement plan to continue, I think, into October, November of this year. So I mean, as I mentioned, definitely keep your ear to the wire, because we are sending out notifications, we are sending out postings. But most importantly, definitely join our emailing list. It's the easiest way to contact you. And we send out notifications for all the meetings that we host as part of this project.
All right, I am just going to go back to the presentation quickly so that Jen can wrap things up. Or I will wrap them up for her. So we, as mentioned, have been doing a lot of engagement. Obviously, we'll continue to do more. Just a quick recap of everything that you'll be able to find on our website. So we started these virtual series last June, where we talked first with Charles Brown, Elijah Evans from Bikes Not Bombs, and an urban planner who spoke about the limitations on Black residents of Boston and of America based on policies, police, and polity. Charles Brown can be found on Twitter and on his website, equitableCities.com. He's also launched a podcast that covers and goes into more detail on a lot of the topics that we discussed in June. In July, we hosted 2 meetings with the Environment Department to talk about their heat resilience study, which just came out last week. So there should be a link in the chat coming up about that. And then we also talked about air quality and what the city is doing to think about air quality improvements. Following that conversation, we were able to work together with the Environment Department and the Office of Urban Mechanics to install the very first air quality sensors that the city owns on city streets. We installed 8 of them on Cummins Highway to start measuring data before construction. We're hoping to learn after construction, what the changes have been. But we're also, this is very much a pilot. It's the first time that we're putting them up. So we want to make sure that residents feel like this is helpful to them, that they're able to find the information. And I say this knowing that we don't have an online dashboard just yet, but we are trying to get that stuff up and out to share with as many people as possible. We have not yet identified where the sensors will be placed after the reconstruction is complete. In August, we had a co-hosted meeting with the Boston Planning and Development Agency, and specifically the Plan Mattapan team. So we talked about how Cummins fits into the larger planning efforts for the neighborhood. And at that time, we heard a lot about the trial and needing to be proactive and working with a number of partners. And I hope you see that we have been bringing in people from many different departments since then to talk about how we're working together for this design. In September, we talked about street lighting. I am so fascinated by our street lighting team, so I definitely recommend listening to that meeting and hearing about the type of work that they do, as well as what they're hoping to achieve with the Cummins Highway reconstruction. In October, we had the Boston Public Health Commission talk with us about public health and the connection with street design and well-being, and what we're thinking as a city for public health and how we can improve that generation to generation. In January, coming back from our holiday break, we talked about our bus stops and where we plan to place them on the corridor, some of the feedback that we've heard that we changed the design to better match. But we also talked about some of the things that we do to make sure bus stops are accessible, which Jen covered again this evening. And then in February, we talked about street trees and the urban forest plan that is coming through the Boston Parks and Recreation Department in partnership with the Environment Department. So we're really excited to see what's coming out of that. And obviously we'll continue working very closely with the Parks Department and the street tree team to plan for both preserving the existing trees on Cummins Highway and to make sure that new trees can thrive for the long term. And then in March, just last month, we talked about intersection design across the city and how we're applying that to Cummins Highway, how we are adjusting the design to understand some of your concerns around traffic. And we also talked in a little bit more detail about that modern roundabout that Jeff just talked about this evening. And I'll take this moment to note that at our traffic signals, there are more than 2 lanes. There are usually at least 3, and then at some locations there are 4. So we are very mindful about making sure that traffic continues to flow, while also making sure that the street is safe for everyone, regardless of their age or ability. Which leads me to our next meeting will be on Wednesday, May 25th at 6:30. It will also be via Zoom so that we can record it and share it out afterwards. You will probably see Jen and Hannah and maybe our colleague Karen out putting new flyers up to make sure everyone knows about this. We can add more locations to our flyering route. We will also be sending a postcard to our 4,000 plus addresses that are near the Cummins Highway area, and we'll be sending information via email. And if you were registered for tonight's meeting, you will be added to the email list if you weren't already on the email list, and we will make sure to double down on sharing information with everyone. So I hope you'll join us next month. We will be joined by the staff from the Persons for Disabilities Commission. We'll also be sharing a video that one of the, I don't know if he's on the commission or if he's just very active with the community, but we worked with a resident named Jerry Boyd to learn more about his perspective as a wheelchair user and to share some design tools that we're going to be including in the project to help support people with different abilities. All right, Jen, tell us about the other things going on in Mattapan.
All right, go. All right, so you've probably heard us promoting this, but you can ride the route 23, 28, and 29 buses for free. This is I think it's a 2-year pilot, yes. And you can learn more at boston.gov/free-bus. The city of Boston has a rental relief fund. And if you or someone you know think could use this, you can visit this link. And I believe Nathaniel's putting all the links in the chat as well. All right, our team in the transportation department is hiring for instructors and to help us teach the joys of biking so everyone can, or more people can use all of these facilities that we're building around the city. So more information at the link that Nathaniel is sharing. You can also, so Blue Bikes is our public bike share system. We do have discounted passes as well, so you can check that out. And more stations coming to Mattapan in the coming months. All right, there's going to be an exciting event. I might get to go to this year. It's the MAHA's annual Taste of Dorchester event at local 103 IBEW. And I think the next few are some job opportunities for youth. One is the Boston Fire Teen Academy with an application deadline coming up. So if you could help us spread the word about that. Next slide. There's also a construction training program. I believe this isn't just youth, it's more broad. Looks like a bunch of really fascinating classes, and so check that out. There's going to be a Neponset River cleanup, although actually that has already passed, so scratch that. Sorry. Okay, Love Your Block mini grants. The city is again providing up to $3,500 in funding for community beautification projects. All of these pictures were ones that I believe are in Mattapan or nearby. So you can see some of the different types of things you can do. Here's the other youth job opportunity, Success Link Youth Jobs Program. And the mayor is again doing the coffee hour series. These are coming up in the next few months. The one in Dorchester and Vernon Park is in June, and then there's going to be, June 22nd, and then on the 30th at Walker Playground. And then Andrea mentioned the Bus Buddies program that the Age Strong Commission runs. So they have trained volunteers that help older adults navigate public transit, and there's a phone number that you can reach out to for more information. And this was a late breaking addition to the lineup tonight. Our colleagues at the Disabilities Commission shared this opportunity. There's going to be a forum on May 11th, an opportunity to meet with government officials, learn about different accessibility initiatives, and provide input into the priorities coming up. With that, we'd love it if you'd stay in touch with us. I've put in this, well, both will put in the chat and in the slides here are links to the Age Strong Commission website, the email address, And then for the Cummins Highway Reconstruction project, the website and how to sign up for the link there, the bit.ly /Cummins 15 is an opportunity to book 15 minutes with someone on the project team. And then also there's Jeff's email there. I think that is, we'll check, but I think that's all we got. We really appreciate everyone coming out tonight. Thank you so much, Andrea, for joining us and sharing about all the amazing work you all have been up to. And yeah, so really hope to see you again next month.